Welcome to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network's Best of 2024 video series, presented by Playback. While you break out your holiday traditions and enjoy the festivities, join us on a look back that was the year in sports in 2024. This is Moving the Goalposts 2024 Year in Review Part 1 with Nick DiMartino and Nick Morgasen on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Nick Morgasen. This is another episode of Moving the Goalposts. This is the Year in Review episode, Part 1. First, you can find us you can follow the Empty the Bench Network on social media at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart. You can follow Nick Morgasen on Twitter at NMorgasen Radio. You can follow this show at MTGPETB across social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on youtube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to all Empty the Bench shows on etbpodcast.com. And you can listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to like and subscribe. And this show, Moving the Goalposts, is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, dropping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. All right, Nick, here it is. We finally reached the end of the year. It is... It is part 1, best of part 1. Oh, you're good.
There you go.
This is the best of episode, part 1, from basically reviewing 2024. And so we have a lot to get to because it's been an eventful year in the world of sports.
Well, it's been an eventful year for sports, and I guess you could say it's been a little eventful for this show for the year.
It's also been eventful globally.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I would say so. In every possible way, it's been fairly eventful. One of the ways it's been eventful, I think we have to start off with this, is Taylor Swift. At one point on this show, there were maybe like 3 or 4 shows in a row where Taylor Swift was just in the title somewhere.
Gee, why am I not surprised? I mean, she's bigger than the game, for crying out loud.
Bigger than the game. Yeah. Well, it actually started It started pretty early in the season last year. And I remember in the very beginning, Travis Kelce scored a touchdown and Ian Eagles says, Travis Kelce finds a blank space. It was something like that. He used the word blank space.
It's the awkward broadcasting techniques that these guys use. And I thought that was like, oh, that's a Kevin Harlanism or an Ian Eagle-ism, like where they just pull these random things out of thin air and they start saying it. And I'm like, you know what? We're trying a little too hard to get the Taylor Swift references in. I understand it's free promotion and they want all the Taylor Swift fans to watch, but can we take it easy? Just take it down.
Yeah. It seems to have calmed down a little bit because Travis Kelce is not having a big year.
Well, no, she's at every home game, so it becomes an event.
She's still at every home game, but it's not as big of a deal as it was last year.
Well, now the next big thing is, are they going to get married?
Yeah, that's the other. I guess you could say that's the other big thing. By the way, that relationship was so publicized that it made Jason Kelce more popular.
It made the whole family
and
more popular.
More popular. That was all Taylor Swift.
I mean, look at the podcast that Travis and Jason are doing, New Heights. That podcast is so big, it got them like $100 million a year deal with Amazon, I think is where they are now.
Well, now Jason Kelce's wife, is doing a podcast.
The first episode is bigger than Joe Rogan. It beat Joe Rogan on the charts.
No, well, maybe because it's the first episode.
Well, Go look it up. It actually was put out in
I don't.
all the news cycles, but like I agree with you. It's one episode. And whenever a big name puts out a first episode, everyone wants
Yeah.
to go and the world wants to hear it.
Like,
But
I get that if Jerry Seinfeld were to start a podcast,
it would be a record.
it would
I'd
be
tell
Joe
you.
Rogan the first day. But, as time goes on, it would not continue to be that big.
Well, you would have the Seinfeld base that would constantly want to hear it, but
Yeah.
I don't think Jerry would want to do it. That's
I
the
don't
other
think,
thing.
knowing him, I don't think he would want to do a podcast.
He would get offered a buttload, let's just put it that way, to do a podcast.
Well, he was also offered a buttload for season 10 of Seinfeld and didn't do it.
And we're going off topic, but I was going to say that I think it's like $1 million or more an episode he was offered in season 10, which was a record at the time.
And he turned it down because he wanted to go out on a high note. And frankly, I don't blame him because he's pretty good when it comes to money now anyway. He didn't need that.
I was going to say that
He didn't need those extra millions.
That stupid Netflix show he did was awful. But comedians in cars drinking coffee.
Oh, you didn't like that? Comedians in cars getting coffee? I thought you were talking about the Pop-Tart movie. No, comedians in cars getting
stupid.
I think comedians in cars getting coffee is very good.
I mean, it's more his lane, if that's what you're asking me. But
like, I think comedians, like talking to comedians, seems so interesting. They're interesting people a lot.
Seeing them behind the scenes is very interesting. So I guess that is a little more behind the scenes. But long story short, you're right. Taylor Swift helped everybody gain notoriety. I mean, heck, Jason Kelce is going to have a late night show on ESPN starting in January.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but do you think that couldn't have happened even without Taylor Swift? Because he was a fairly big name. Yeah, I guess you're right.
There's no way. Having the Swift queenliness behind you helps because everyone's going to want to listen to what the Kelseys are doing. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a show like the Kardashian, Keeping Up with the Kelseys would be the next thing.
Actually, Travis Kelce was once on a dating show.
On E! Network. Yeah.
Yeah, it was called Catching Kelce, I think. But this was way, way before Taylor Swift. And this was before. Way before he was even really that famous. He's been in the league for a long time. At this point, this may have been like anywhere from like 5 or 10 years ago.
It was 2016, Catching Kelce.
Yeah, this was way before he was the figure that he is now.
This was way before the Super Bowls. This is way before.
This is before Mahomes.
And by the way, did you know it was 50 women from 50 states were on that show? Yeah.
That's more than The Bachelor.
Seriously. And I despise The Bachelor. But like, I don't know. Taylor Swift has changed everything, not just for the Kelseys, for the NFL too.
Yeah, and the NFL milked it too.
I mean, milked it. They milked the cows so much that the cow was dry.
Well, they went too far with it. They went too far. Like they
were playing her music going out to breaks.
It's not even that. It's more that remember when the Jets lost to the Chiefs?
Yes.
And it was on a controversial call.
Yes.
And then the NFL puts out a tweet celebrating the Chiefs are undefeated whenever Taylor Swift is in the crowd. Well, which is a weird argument because the Chiefs were the best team in the league last year.
They were trying to take Taylor Swift and add it. Think about it. We talk about this all the time in social media. We talk about the algorithm. Think about it. Taylor Swift into the NFL algorithm. That's like an explosion waiting to happen on both sides of that algorithm. I mean, heck, I now see Travis dancing with a top hat and stuff in all her shows. You think that's an accident?
Yeah, no, I don't. And by the way, Travis Kelce dresses really weird sometimes.
He does.
It's like the early 1900s, going to a horse race in the early 1900s.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, the NFL just really milked the hell out of this. And, of course, the Chiefs ended up going to the Super Bowl. I guess it was almost like a perfect storm because she was dating a star tight end, one of the best ever, on the best team in the NFL. I feel like if Travis Kelce was one of those really good players on a bad team, let's say Travis Kelce was on the Browns or something like that, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal.
I think you're right. But I don't know. It's the perfect storm, as you said. You have two worlds clashing, the NFL and Taylor Swift. I mean,
yeah, it was, which I guess attracted a lot of non-football fans to these games.
And that's
to
what
watch them.
bothered me. That bothered me when Tom and I talked about it on our show. I was just like, "Oh, look, they're NFL fans." No, they're not NFL fans.
Look,
They're watching the NFL because of her dating Travis Kelce.
right. It's not that I have an issue with that per se. In fact, if anything, I think it's a good thing. I mean, that's why we put games in foreign countries where people who are otherwise not familiar with the NFL are now able to or now can watch some of these games.
Well, other countries think football is soccer, but that's a whole different issue.
Well, that's not American football, as they
Right.
American football. Like they go. That's why they go to Europe and to Brazil because they want to get more.
Well, heck, we're going to Berlin next year. That was officially announced.
Well, didn't they go to Berlin this year?
No, they went to Germany. They went to
Berlin
London.
is in Germany.
Oh, well, or it's a different place. They're going to a different
city.
Yeah, different city.
In my mind, the only city in Germany I know is Berlin.
I thought they made a huge announcement about it. Like, we're going here.
That was the Giants-Panthers game.
Oh, jeez.
That they sent to Germany.
God, that was awful.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift, was really the talk of the town around a year ago.
If I had to guesstimate, it made them a few $1 billion.
It probably did. I remember Shannon Sharp got flack because he said she's as close to Michael Jackson as we've ever seen, and he's right. The thing is, he's right. I mean, the type of the needle mover that Taylor Swift was last year was she was basically her own economy.
I would argue that she might be bigger actually than Michael Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know. I was not alive when Michael Jackson was as big as he was.
I really wasn't either. So
neither were you. Yeah.
But I would say that the social media age today helps anybody be bigger. Michael Jackson didn't have that, and he was still huge and still sold albums and records and all that. I mean, heck, this Eras tour that officially finally came to an end.
Yeah.
They said this tour made billions, not millions, billions. And she even paid everybody like extra bonuses on her tour on top of it. That's how much money they made.
Yeah. And I liked all the private jet jokes that were
that was getting so ridiculous at some point.
It was pretty funny.
It was, but at some point it's like, all right, get it. Enough.
So another headline, Jason Whitlock.
Ugh.
Jason Whitlock, remember that? Okay, what exactly was it? It was he saw something on ESPN.com.
Yes.
And it was something
the ads. He said that the ads that were being algorithmed were coming up as like, I don't know if it was porn or other ads or whatever.
Oh, wait, I'm going to pull it up right now. It was this is really funny. It said so on ESPN.com he got an ad that said for like, I guess it was for like a Christmas card or something, or a holiday card or something.
They were out of date. So like they were getting ads like that you would think would be for the end of the year, but I think that they were.
Oh, I think it was a happy birthday card, actually.
That's it. Yes.
It was a happy birthday card for a husband or a boyfriend. And it said, and the card says, balls deep inside of me is a great way to spend our It's a great way to spend your birthday.
Yes. I remember that.
And I will defend Jason Whitlock just for a minute because people were saying, I will defend him for a minute because people were saying, oh, I will defend him. People were saying, oh, well, that means that you were searching it and that's what the algorithm does. That was the whole point of this
99.9% of the time, the way ads are done is based on algorithm now. Like, if you look at Facebook, which most of us don't anymore because we're past Facebook. But I always used to wonder this when I first was on Facebook. I'm like, wait, I was looking up sporting events, and all of a sudden I see a sports ad in my Facebook side over there. It's because they have a way to see what you're looking at.
Yeah, that is true. Although I will say, I do think the Facebook algorithm is pretty broken.
It is broken.
It is really broken because I don't think Facebook knows me well at all.
Well, it always knew what I was searching. Like if I was doing sports stuff or whatever, like it knew.
I will say, because I could look on my Facebook feed, and I get all sorts of ads that are totally not like.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Really, no, exactly. So basically, I'm on right now, and I just got something for the Nerd Store.
I don't know. I'm looking at the sponsored ads
The
in my
Nerd Store, I
Facebook
think, is
page.
in like it's like a toy store, and it sells like comics. Like that's not me at all. At one time, a lot of times I get things. I get ads for like pickup trucks and things like
What?
that. I get ads all the time for
Well, you
things.
might be getting toy stores because of the holiday. I don't know, but
Well, yeah, that makes sense. But the point is, it's not based on anything I've actually searched. Now, there are times when I get recommendations for things I really do search.
and it's like identical almost
Yeah,
sometimes,
that-
and you're like, wait, am I getting stalked by Facebook or something?
yeah. So I do get that a lot too. But to be fair, I do get ads sometimes for things that like I
Agreed.
don't actually search.
Yeah, but you know what though? People were laughing just because like Jason Whitlock's a dirty, creepy individual. Like just like he's told stories in the past, like where he's gone home with strippers and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
he has said that.
So like people are like, well, what the hell were you searching that came up?
Yeah, it's totally reasonable. All I'm saying is that, like, I think a lot of times these algorithms are a bit broken. Like, I have a friend who told me that on Facebook that he gets a bunch of ads for like pregnant women, and he's
Wow.
not a woman, so I don't know how that could happen. So I see. So things like crazy things like that do happen quite a lot.
But let's be fair about one thing. Jason Whitlock, like he's very critical of everything. Like
Yeah,
everything.
Jason Whitlock. I think the thing is, I think Jason Whitlock is an intelligent guy who's also a little crazy, in a sense,
Demented.
for lack of a better term.
I would say demented.
Like like he's like I do think he's intelligent, but is also just is very critical of things for often sort of silly reasons.
And he also pushes the envelope, like to the point.
Yeah,
Or like the
he does.
example I used this on a show a couple of weeks ago. Do you know the Price is Right game where the yodeler climbs the hill and like because you're guessing the price and it keeps going,
Oh
and then
yeah.
and it falls off at the top if you're over the price. Jason Whitlock is that yodeler that climbs all the way up to the top and doesn't know
Yeah.
when to stop and falls over.
Yeah, I guess you could put it. I guess that's a pretty good way to put it.
I mean, did you see the ridiculous argument him and Stephen A. Smith got into? And Stephen A. actually called him like a fat elephant or
which
something.
it's such low hanging fruit at this point. Everybody has brought up that he's fat. like, yeah, we all get it. Like, I don't know.
He's got a following, which I don't understand and here's the other ridiculous thing. He's worked at Fox. He's worked at ESPN. Like, he's had high profile jobs. And because he's an ass, they fire him.
Yeah, it seems like he has trouble getting along with people. It seems like
where's he working now? He's
the Blaze.
A political pundit. Big surprise.
Yeah, although his show is kind of sports related too.
Did you see that it's called Fearless with Jason Whitlock?
Yeah.
Gee, didn't expect that.
But yeah, he was at ESPN for a while and Fox Sports. He did the show with Colin Cowherd.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. That show was actually not bad.
Speak for yourself. Now it's just called Speak.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
I think Emmanuel Acho's on it. Is that who's on it?
He's now the lead host. It's all football players, or no, that one is the locker room. That one is the one that's hosted by all the football players. But
okay.
But Jason Whitlock versus Mina Kimes was another one.
That was weird because Mina Kimes. So basically, that whole feud started with the producer of the WEI morning show, Chris Curtis.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because I remember Chris Curtis from when I used to listen to Kirk and Callahan.
I like Kirk.
I like Kirk, but I really do like Kirk Minahan, but his whole shtick of like hating everybody is just so like bizarre.
He still does it at Barstool.
He still does it. Like he was saying that about like remember like WFAN? He was when Boomer and Gio first started. He kept saying that about like Gio too. I was just like, Gio's been great. So he seems to like hate everybody.
I think part of it with Gio is the shtick people are annoyed with.
Well, I don't know. This was in the beginning, though. This was in the very beginning. But I do think that Kirk Minahan is great on the radio. Like when he was on the radio, he was just Kirk and Callahan was must listen to radio.
I think the two just hated each other. That's why the show
No,
eventually ended.
that wasn't why the show ended. The show ended because of their fights with management and Bob Murchison.
Well, WEEI was not exactly the nicest of places, at least from
No,
what
it wasn't because him and Jerry were fighting. Because it didn't seem like they ever really did. They would argue on the air, but
he talks about it all the time how they were not exactly the friendliest of friends.
Yeah, well, they weren't friends, but that's not why the show ended. If anything, I think they didn't get along with John Dennis.
Well, that whole station, like I said, was a mess.
But the show was so good, the Kirk and Callahan show.
From what I understand, I don't know if it's true. He said they were rating over a 10 in
I
morning.
Don't know. I know their ratings were very good.
They were very good. And that's why they were in morning.
And the reason the show was so good is because they didn't even talk about sports very much. They just
that's the new thing. Look at McAfee. Look at Colin. Look at Colin Cowherd now. But
Colin Cowherd still does sport. He still does a lot of sports, but it involves a lot of analogies. And I'll say Colin Cowherd is probably the most interesting person to do a solo show right now. Of anybody to do it.
He's not what I've learned. I liked him when he did his solo show at ESPN on the radio. I like his show now. He needs the right person to interact with.
Right. But I think everybody kind of does.
But like he could literally babble in your face for 3 hours a day and it doesn't bug him. Like he just does that.
Yeah.
What he's good at.
Yeah, and he's really, really good at it. But even then, it's like, that last hour, they usually get like a guest or something like that. He usually talks with somebody.
Is it weird to say that Colin actually made Jason Whitlock a little more likable?
He did. And by the way, I think like he used to have Jason Whitlock on a lot. And by the way, Jason Whitlock would sometimes fill in for Colin.
Yeah.
And I thought Jason Whitlock was actually very interesting to listen to when Colin Cowherd would have him on as a guest. I thought he was very good. I think he made Nick Wright more likable too.
Well, him and Nick Wright are friendly. Like he has him on for a weekly segment, I think, every week.
He and Jason Whitlock were friendly too, but he's not at Fox Sports anymore.
Because Jason burns bridges with everybody, as we learned. It
seems like he often does. Because I don't know if you saw, there was he responded to Jason McIntyre.
Yes, he basically said, "Oh, you sold off your site," which he did. He did sell off his site.
Yeah, and then he kept, and Jason Whitlock was saying, "Well, Jason McIntyre is an intellectual lightweight,"
which is ridiculous.
But I don't know. I mean, he's a sports talker, so he doesn't really need to be an intellectual heavyweight anyway.
Yeah, it's like you said, Whitlock will pick the dumbest arguments to make on certain people, and it kills him in the long run because then all the networks just say, nope, not touching that.
So I wanted to get into this headline. Michigan winning the national championship and Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan. So Jim Harbaugh won and he left. Jim Harbaugh, one of the few head coaches to be very good in the NFL and college football. Michigan, I remember when Michigan was a laughingstock. I remember when Michigan, like 10 years ago, Michigan, the only bowl game they were going to was the toilet bowl. Like that was it. Like when Devin Gardner was their quarterback, they stunk when Brady Hoke was their head coach. And credit to Harbaugh, he turned the program around. So
the big thing for me, and if I'm wrong and I don't remember the timeline, the recruiting violations, right, was the big thing.
It was during COVID. It was like COVID rules.
But at the end of last season or now? I can't remember. Like they got him on recruiting violations before he left. So they basically said to him, well, guess what? If you ever come back to college football, you're going to get these sanctions or whatever, which I thought was stupid because he's not coming back to college football.
Well, he might come back at some point. We don't know. He's not.
It's a 5-year deal with Chargers. I don't think he's coming back.
You don't think it's possible that after 5 years, he might want to coach college football again?
He was begging to get back to the NFL. You think he's going to give it up?
He won't want to go back to college in 5 years.
I think they said he would have to sit out a year though if he came back, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure actually if he would have to sit out a whole year for that. But he kind of pulled the Pete Carroll. He got recruiting. He had some violations, and then he left.
Well, I think both of them were better because of it.
Yeah.
Actually, here it is. So he got a 4-year show cause, whatever that is, for recruiting violations. Do you know what that is?
A 4-year show cause.
That's what so they announced a 4-year show cause order.
I'm not sure what that is, actually. I don't know.
Which means, effectively banning him from college athletics until August 2028. So he did get a ban.
So interesting. All for a recruiting violation?
Now, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he at the time, he got a recruiting violation because he paid for somebody's lunch?
Who, Pete Carroll?
No, Jim Harbaugh. I could have sworn that
NIL money. I feel today's NIL world. I feel like that sounds unlikely, but I don't remember.
I'm trying to look it up in the story as we're talking, but I remember seeing a story like on SportsCenter, like that. This was way before NILs and all that stuff. He got in trouble for paying for somebody's lunch, which you weren't even allowed to do back then for a recruit because that was considered a pay for play.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know. I've never heard that before.
But it sounds
like something that would happen. It really does sound like something that would happen.
But it goes to show you that we were eventually heading down the road to the NILs, and now the portal has become NFL free agency.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of it is. I mean, by the way, this is proof that Reggie Bush should get his Heisman Trophy back.
Oh, I'm not the biggest college football fan, but I know when that whole incident happened, like at the time, the rules were, hey, you can't accept money from an agent, whatever.
Yeah.
Now that NILs and gambling money and all this nonsense are in sports, give him his Heisman back.
Yeah. And I was also him having an agent has nothing to do with how good of a football player he was.
Exactly.
Like it's not like it was performance enhancing. He didn't cheat. He didn't take steroids. It was just a violation that had nothing to do with football.
That's usually what most violations are.
Right. Most of these. So I never got that. I want to do this story. Remember that with this Wisconsin radio host clown was saying that the Packers should injure Brock Purdy.
Yes.
We don't have the sounds. I
remember the sound, though, specifically how ridiculous. I think you and I were doing an episode when this happened. By the way, just to clear something up, because I just found the info. The NCAA reportedly found a receipt for cheeseburgers from the Brown Jug, a restaurant in Ann Arbor, excuse me. And that's what they got Harbaugh on. Now continue.
Okay. So he paid for a cheeseburger.
Cheeseburgers, yes.
Well, he wouldn't have paid for a chicken sandwich.
It says the legal edge that the meal was between Harbaugh and a couple of recruits, and at the time, coaches were prohibited from recruiting due to COVID-19.
Okay. Now, I would venture to guess that everybody was probably recruiting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he wasn't the only one.
Probably not. But just to answer your question on this, I remember this sound because I remember pulling this sound when you asked for it, and I laughed, by the way. Because, first of all, why does all the interesting radio come out of, like, Wisconsin when we hear all these? Like when Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre used to do their shows.
I would say it doesn't. This isn't interesting. This is just a guy being an idiot.
Well, no, I call it interesting because I always find it when they make national headlines on a dinky local radio station in Wisconsin.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to happen in New York that much anymore.
No, because everyone expects people to make stupid headlines in New York. So,
but like, how often does New York radio make stupid headlines anymore? It almost never really does. When's the last time like you heard that on like heard something like that on Boomer and Geo or Evan and Tiki? That almost never happens anymore in New York.
I can't think of many. I think I found the actual. So it was a Wisconsin-based ESPN radio host.
Okay, that's what it was.
And then the quote was a 15-yard penalty, and I don't condone this, but I kind of do in the playoffs for a late hit on Brock Purdy is not a bad thing as long as it's worth it.
Which is such a dumb argument because you're losing your team 15 yards. It's going to be like an automatic. So let's say on third down, there's a late hit on Brock Purdy and you get a 15-yard penalty. That's an automatic first down. That could change the momentum of the game. That's not like that. That's not going to help your team win.
Yeah, so it's not a good look. And I remember how many headlines it made because it was actually ESPN Milwaukee, the radio station down there, which they actually use a lot of those hosts to do national shows on the weekend for ESPN Radio.
Oh, really?
So not this guy, but I know a lot of the other talent down there they use for ESPN Radio on the weekend nationally. But come on, dude. Really? You're wishing for a quarterback to get hurt? You and I, I'm sure, have had this argument a million times. I don't care if it's a guy on the team that I hate. I would never wish for a player to be hurt.
No, of course not. It's just like, but also it's just dumb strategically.
I mean, I hated David Ortiz with a passion in the Yankee-Red Sox rivalry days. I would never wish for him to get hurt and never be able to play again.
No, of course not. It's also just a crazy thing to say out loud.
Yeah.
So there's another story we had to get to. Aaron Rodgers versus Jimmy Kimmel. Remember this?
This was incredibly stupid. Just in every way, shape, or form. And this is Aaron Rodgers' fault. Let's get that out of the way. Number one. Because I think this was Disney on Disney crime, too, by the way.
Correct.
Because this was on the Pat McAfee show, which was just, I think, barely new on the ESPN airwaves at that point.
It was.
And obviously, Jimmy Kimmel is the ABC late night show. So there was a big problem for Bob Iger, who is the president of Disney.
Yeah.
Who had to step in between the two because Aaron basically accused Jimmy of being on the Epstein list, right? I think that's
exactly what happened.
And Jimmy basically came out on his show and said, watch what you're saying. And it led to a whole war. And then, of course, because Jimmy and his writers don't stop, they double down. They started pulling clips from McAfee's show and going after Aaron.
Yeah. It was a weird, because like the thing is, Aaron Rodgers said, a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, although I think he did back off from it.
It took a long time, though. Like, he did it for quite a few weeks.
Yeah, he did back, including Jimmy Kimmel, don't want the Epstein list to come out.
Yes. And that's where Jimmy was pissed. And by the way, I'm the biggest hater of Jimmy Kimmel that there is out there. I don't like Jimmy
Kimmel either, but I can't blame him for that.
I can't blame him. I actually defended Jimmy Kimmel on the show I do. I defended him, and I wanted to yak all over the place because I can't stand him. But I can't defend Aaron, and this was like the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it was just off-season nonsense. And I don't think it was a bad thing that he went on Pat McAfee a bunch of times.
He's just paid by McAfee's show.
What's that?
He's paid by McAfee.
Oh, yeah. He's paid by that because he's fairly interesting.
And I'll let you in on something that and people that don't know, every big guest that you see on McAfee's show is on payroll.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Except for like the athletes. Like that are guests.
Yeah.
Aaron is paid. Nick Saban is paid. I mean, there's so many. They get
Nick Saban works for ESPN now.
Right, but he gets a separate fee from McAfee's budget.
I'm sure he does.
He's not doing that for free.
No, believe me, I'm sure. Aaron Rodgers has been we'll talk about him again a little later. Mad Dog.
Yeah.
That fake Adam Schefter tweet. My rule, whenever I see a big news story, something tweeted by an account like Adam Schefter, I assume it's fake until proven otherwise.
Well, here's the problem. So now that you can buy verification for every Twitter account, you have to look 10, 15, 20 times as much now.
Well, exactly. But I mean, all you have to do is open up the account and you just figure out if it's fake or not. Like if I see an Adam Schefter, if I see an account that says Adam Schefter with a blue check, just open the account. If there's like 200 followers, you realize it's not his.
So when Elon Elon Musk caused this whole mess, basically saying you have to buy premium, and now blue check marks mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
ESPN was getting duped for a long time because they tried to be first to news, and then people would be like, it's fake. It's fake.
Well, here's the thing. I will say that in some ways I like the way Musk runs Twitter. In other ways I don't. This is one of the ways I don't.
I don't either.
I do not like the new blue check thing, because it defeats the purpose of the blue check.
Because now people are like, is it real Taylor Swift or is it fake Taylor Swift?
Well, the point of the blue check is to signal to other users
verification.
The verification of that user, which is for public figures. But if you can just buy it, and if you have to buy it and can just buy it and just becomes a service, well, that defeats the purpose of the blue check, because somebody with 20 followers can just get a blue check. And
that's the problem.
And you see it a lot. So I see somebody with people with like 20 followers with blue checks, and their posts are getting like boosted.
Right.
And no sense at all.
And now you have the yellow check marks. I'm sure you've seen that on Twitter too.
That's the premium one, right?
Well, that's the business level of verification.
That's the highest level. So like ESPN has that, the New York Times has that.
You have to pay for that.
Yeah, all the channel, all the big organizations have that.
And I think if you're a yellow check mark, like you also they now have this new grouping thing now, like where you can put all your accounts from like a huge network into a yellow check mark, like if you have one, and then like it signifies that it's part of like the ESPN network, or whatever. Yeah. But I heard those are like $10,000 or more a month. Like
that's why only organizations have them. People don't really have them.
It's still an insane amount of money a month.
It is. I don't even have a regular blue check.
I mean, our show accounts have them, but that's because we went to premium. But I will tell you,
Empty the Bench does, and the Empty the Bench network does.
Right. And then like MMA Outsiders, and we're starting to do that. Actually, we might do it for this show soon also.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
But let's be clear about something. We're not looking at it from a blue check mark standpoint. I don't care about the blue check mark. It's more for the premium feature, being able to put longer clips, being able to do all these different things you couldn't do.
Well, yeah, and which, by the way, I will say is a huge hassle when it comes to posting show like clips. Like being limited to a certain number of characters. I almost always have to shorten it.
So on that, you can go past, I think you can go up to like 25,000 characters.
What is it now?
So the normal without everything is 240, I think, total. 240 characters. That includes spaces. So with the premium, you can go 25,000, I think. The only thing that will happen is it'll put a continued if you go past the 240. You just have to expand the tweet. It's the only difference.
Right. That's it. Yeah. So anyway, Mad Dog, he got faked by the Adam Schefter tweet. Basically, this was the tweet. It was that Andy Reid is retired. It was like right before the Super Bowl.
I remember. Was retiring. Yeah. That was, and he went off on a rant, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think no. That's not what happened. He didn't go off on a rant. It was the very end of his Friday show. That's what it was.
That sounds about right.
And wait, it was the very end of his Friday show, and he's like, hold on. You know what? I could probably pull the sound up.
Or you could just do it. You're good enough at doing it.
He's like, wow. Wait, hold on a second. It was.
You should just find the quote, and then you can just read the whole quote. I mean,
wait.
And of course, back after this, got a full video clip of it. Oh, I found the quote.
Oh, okay.
So it says, Adam Schefter just reported this. Now, I don't know if we got to double check it. That should have been your first hint if you didn't know. Oh, my God. It says that Andy Reid has announced his retirement from the NFL. And Matt Nagy will be interim coach of the Chiefs during the postseason, said Russo. Wow.
That is like, if you see a tweet like that, just assume it's fake until proven otherwise.
I mean, I'm trying to find the actual tweet just because I'm curious to see if I can find it. But all right, I'll have to look for it later. But I remember seeing it and saying it's not Adam Schefter.
Yeah,
And
obviously.
and
You
there's
think Andy Reid is just going to retire in the middle of the postseason?
no.
Like, how do you believe that?
I mean, the weird account that goes around is the Black Adam Schefter. That's another one that goes around that's really bad. Like
You see a black Adam Schefter, a white Stephen A. Smith, black Skip Bayless.
and then and then you see them change the handle like by adding a 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm typing Adam Schefter into Twitter right now just to see how many come up. The Adam Schefter of hip hop. That's another one that came up. So there's so many of them.
Yeah. Other sports media news, I would say. I guess we sort of talked about this already, but I put it in there anyway. Stephen A. Smith versus Jason Whitlock, that feud.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm trying to look up the quote exactly of what he called. I thought he called him like a fat elephant, and I'm trying to remember.
I think he said fat piece of shit or something like that.
Well, then that had to be on his podcast, not on ESPN.
Well, because he didn't talk about it on ESPN. It was on his podcast.
Oh, he called Jason Whitlock straight trash and won't back down.
Yeah, well, because it involved Jason Whitlock saying that Stephen A. Smith lied about his basketball career.
Well, it said also that he lied about his book.
Remember, right, that he lied in his book is what.
I mean, can we have a little integrity saying that someone lied in their own book?
I don't know where. Look, I don't know anything about Stephen A. Smith's life. I couldn't really. I don't know much about it. I don't know what he's claiming. I don't remember exactly what it was that he was claiming that he lied about, but he kept calling him Stephen A. Myth.
I remember that, actually.
I thought it was kind of funny.
So he called him a fat bitch? Is that what he called him?
Yeah, it was probably that.
I mean, Stephen A. is usually like above all that stuff when people call him out, but like Whitlock did a number on him mentally.
Is he above it though? I mean,
usually Stephen A. doesn't stoop to that level. Usually,
yeah, I guess that's true. Actually, I've never heard him call anybody a bitch or anything like that.
I mean, his podcast is huge. Like he'll do anything on there. It's funny how the rules don't apply to him on his podcast.
His podcast is not ESPN.
No, I get it, but I'm saying the rules don't apply to him on outside stuff like it does to everybody else.
Right, because it's on a competing network.
Right, it's on iHeart.
Yeah, they wouldn't allow anybody else to do that.
No, of course not.
But you know what? I guess that might change for other people in the future.
Pat McAfee.
Yeah, but Pat McAfee doesn't have a show on a competing network yet.
He works for WWE.
That's different. Is it? That's different, right?
I mean, I get it, but I'm saying he is technically doing other projects, and actually, technically, his show is only licensed to ESPN.
No, but like the WWE and ESPN are not rival networks. The WWE is wrestling.
That's true. They're not.
We're not saying networks. The NFL network is a rival to ESPN.
Pat McAfee does a spot on the NFL network too.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a little different.
I mean, this whole feud was silly, but
it was. So another big headline: Lions. The Lions lost in the NFC Championship game. I remember the title of the show we did for this after this game. It was called "The Lion." Dan Campbell goes for it with Taylor Swift.
Yes, and I think it did well too.
I think it did fairly well. Well, we had Dan Campbell and Taylor Swift in the title.
Now, this was the illegal reporting of player, right? If I remember.
No. That was a regular season game. This was when Dan Campbell went for it on 4th and short twice.
And failed the second time.
And failed both times.
Oh, both times. That's right.
He failed both times. And if he had kicked the field goal, and remember, they lost 34-31.
They would have gone to overtime. Yeah.
Well, do you remember? No. Do you remember the? Did this game go to overtime? I don't remember.
No, I'm saying it would have gone to overtime if he took a field goal.
If you don't remember, they were up 24-10. The Lions.
Yes.
And they end up, instead of kicking the field goal, they go for it on 4th and 2 and miss it. And instead of going up 27-10, they end up. It's still 20. 24 to
or 27 to 10. Or 24 to 10.
It's still 24 to 10. Instead of going up 27 to 10, they give the ball back to the Niners. The Niners go down and score. Now it's 24-17.
Yeah.
And I remember I was saying at the time, momentum is kind of an underrated thing.
Yes.
And, that really just killed the momentum for the Lions.
I mean, isn't that how he got the nickname Man Campbell? I mean, like, 'cause he just would go on every fourth down. Still does it, by the way.
But you know what? The thing is, though, is that, like, people were talking about, oh, this is how the Lions got there. It's like, okay, the Lions were just a good team. They didn't get there because Dan Campbell went for it on fourth down.
I mean, look at the record this year. They were a much better team than they were last year.
I think they're the best team in the NFL this year.
I think they legitimately have a chance to win a Super Bowl this year.
They have they might have the best chance to win the Super Bowl. But the thing is, last year, I remember when this happened, like, there were some people saying that, but it's like, there's a difference between going for it on fourth down on a 50-50, like in a 50-50 scenario, as opposed to going for it when you absolutely should not go for it. And that's what happened here. He went for it when he shouldn't have gone for it.
He doesn't care. He'll take the chance regardless.
But the point is, there is such thing as being too ballsy.
Agreed. And then sometimes there's being too cautious.
Yeah, both those things exist. You have Todd Bowles and you have Dan Campbell. And
oh, God, Todd Bowles. It just goes on my bad coaching tree for the New York Jets.
Yeah, but I think we have some coaches who beat them out on it. Beat them out. So in this game, it was just really stupid play calling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
So around this time, Bill Belichick and the Patriots parted ways.
This was actually interesting because this was the time period that Belichick stepped away and Nick Saban stepped away.
Yeah. Yeah, it was both around the same time, except Nick Saban actually, like, Bill Belichick sort of was probably fired.
Fired. You know that dumb thing that they say about a coach in an organization? Oh, well, we mutually agreed to part ways. That's what they called it. And that's actually what it says here, that they parted ways. Like, no. Someone was not happy with one or the other, and they just said, all right, bye.
Yeah, well, it was like what happened with Tom Coughlin in the Giants. That's what this was like. Whereas Nick Saban just retired. Nick Saban fully retired. That was the difference.
Nick Saban said he was tired of putting in the 12 to 15-hour days.
Yeah, which makes sense. He's an older guy.
And the amount of titles. He had nothing left to prove.
Yeah, well, now Bill Belichick is going to coach UNC. I am really surprised that Bill Belichick ended up going to college football before Nick Saban ended up going back to the NFL. If you had told me one of these two was going to go to the other, I would have thought Nick Saban would go to the NFL before.
No, because Nick Saban had a horrible time as the Dolphins head coach last time he was in.
That's because he never really had a chance. He was only there for 3 years. If Drew Brees passes his physical, he could have stayed on the Dolphins for many years. We don't know.
Yes, but at the same time, what happens in the NFL when you get a bad reputation as a coach, even first couple of years? You don't come back from it.
Not necessarily. Bill Belichick was not good with the Browns. You could have said the same thing about Bill Belichick if he had left to go coach college. The difference is he stayed in the NFL.
I also think when Nick Saban was having success with Alabama, you're not going to leave.
Yeah, well, you know what? Jim Harbaugh had success at Michigan, and he left.
No, but I'm saying Nick Saban built like a full life down in Alabama.
I mean, I don't know if he wants to coach anymore.
He doesn't. He said he doesn't want to.
He might not want to. But I do think that Nick Saban could be a good NFL head coach.
Maybe.
I mean, well, the point I'm making is, and I guess this is I guess we can sort of combine these two topics, Bill Belichick and Nick Saban retiring.
Yeah.
I do think Nick Saban retired large. I think it had a lot to do with NIL.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
I think that he couldn't be as dominant as he's used to being.
Well, he's also against NIL rules. He doesn't want to pay for athletes.
Right.
Actually, let me take that back. It's not that he doesn't want to pay for athletes. He doesn't like the fact that now he can't say, we're big bad Alabama, just come and play for us as a name. Now that anyone can pay, anyone could overpay big schools to get the athletes.
Right, exactly. And that's what caused him to be less dominant. He testified against it, saying that. Now, I will say I don't take him seriously because he's too involved. Like he has too much of a vested interest against it.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
you need someone who's kind of on the neutral side, looking at both sides of the matter to really determine if it's that bad. Now, the whole argument was these athletes should be paid. I've said many times that you getting to go to school for free
Is
should be
getting paid
is
in a
getting
sense.
paid. But
Well,
but at the same time, I thought the video game stuff was BS. That they were licensing the teams and the players, and the players were not getting cuts of this.
exactly. That's the problem. It's like I get all that. Like, I do agree with that sentiment that going to school for free is, in a sense, getting paid. But at the same time, there are also times when, like, these schools get huge revenue deals from, like, these, like Notre Dame at NBC or something like
Well,
that.
you're talking about sponsors and advertising revenue. Yeah.
Right. And gets all of these deals, and the players don't get a cut of it at all. But also, it's just like they can't even make money out on their own, like through endorsements like Olympians can. That I never thought made any sense.
Right, but Olympians are not technically attached to a school or an educational system. They're literally out fighting for their own money.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is, like, I never understood why the rule was that players couldn't make money off of endorsements and things like that.
The-
That
Even
I
if the
thought
school
was
had
wrong.
some control over it, I'd be fine with that as long as they were allowed to make money off endorsements.
Yeah, I never thought there should be anything wrong with athletes being able to make money off of endorsements, although I never thought they should be paid directly by the schools either, if that
Well,
makes sense.
it's kind of gone from okay, we'll allow it to it's now become the wild, wild west of NIL.
Yeah, it has in some ways,
Because you're
although
seeing guys make deals with Verizon and Buffalo Wild Wings. Like they're personally endorsing quarterbacks.
yeah, and you know what? Well, I'm fine with that. Especially remember there was a college basketball player. I think it was
You're
last.
talking about the one during March Madness that went viral on that lower level team,
Yeah, and he got a deal with Buffalo Wild Wings.
but we haven't heard from him since.
But I mean, he made a lot of money off of the Buffalo Wild Wings
He did the
sponsor.
commercial in the ballroom thing that
Yeah.
everyone laughed at.
But like, would it have been better if he had just not been allowed to do that? Like now he's almost set for life. Maybe not for life, but he made really good money off of that. And I just don't think that's a bad thing.
I'm trying to find who it was because it was during March Madness last year. It was a lower level team that won a few games. I'll look for it while we're
So another story that we have to get to: Al Dukes booked the wrong Randy Moss. He was like, "Yeah, apparently Randy Moss is a big horse racing guy," and Gio was just like, "Wait, are you sure you got the right Randy Moss?"
That's great.
It was a white guy.
And he's a horse racing expert, if I'm not
Yeah, a big
mistaken.
horse racing guy. That's right. And he also, I think, worked at the NFL Network
Briefly. Yes.
briefly. And I think we saw NFL Network, and Al Dukes thought it was like the former football player Randy Moss.
And I think they even got them on the phone and they were confused who they were talking to, right?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, but they thought it was like but Al thought it was the Randy Moss.
By the way, not that this is a full laughing matter, but did you see what actually the news that came out with Randy
Yeah,
Moss?
he has cancer.
Well, did you see that he was wearing sunglasses on the ESPN NFL set?
I didn't see, no.
So his eyes were turning green.
Oh my God, that's terrible. Wait, is
And
that a thing that happens with cancer?
well, no one knew what was going on. Like he said his eyes were turning green. And then I talked about this on ETB 261, which is the last episode of the year. We talked about how his former teammate, I don't know who, revealed the news before he could do it, which annoyed me to no end. Let the guy reveal his own diagnosis.
Didn't Kurt Schilling do that?
Yes, he did that to Tim Wakefield, of all people.
Yeah.
And no one forgave Kurt Schilling after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's really sad what's going on with Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Well, it's in his liver, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's liver cancer. Yeah.
And he's young too.
He's on the younger side. Yeah.
He's what in his 40s, maybe 50s. He
I'm
can't be that
looking it
old.
up. Yeah, I'm looking
He's
it up.
he's got to be
He's
in his late
47.
40s. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So, but anyway, that story was pretty funny. Al Dukes booking the wrong Randy Moss.
It was bad.
Caitlin Clark was a big story all of this year, for much of this year too.
I mean, she did grow the WNBA on her own, essentially.
Yeah, she did. She got them chartered flights.
Which is such a ridiculous thing in every way, shape, or form. And if you remember correctly, I can't remember the Brooklyn Nets owner now, but he
Joe
owned
Tsai?
he owns the Liberty. And
Yes.
he tried to do this and they got fined by the WNBA because he
Yeah.
wanted to put his players on a charter flight. And they said, no, 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 that breaks the WNBA rules, which, wait a minute, you're stopping an owner from spending money?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
And now that Caitlin Clark's in the mix and she's got all her endorsement deals and making money, and they just got their new media rights deal because of the NBA, the WNBA gets their part. They're now on Amazon, NBC, ESPN. I mean, and also the Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese drama is the best for the WNBA.
Yeah, it was. People were saying it was like Magic and Bird. I don't think it was that much.
It's not.
It's not that much like it because Magic and Bird, neither one of them were villains. Like they were just part of the reason it was such a big thing is that they were so different and both great players, but neither one of them were really viewed as villains.
Well, it was more the Lakers-Celtics rivalry.
Right. It had a lot more to do with that. And with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese kind of made herself a villain. That's the reason.
It was her own doing.
It was her own doing, making herself. It's not. Nobody made her a villain except herself.
People were purposely fouling and going after Caitlin Clark, which was wrong. Which I
thought was nuts because there were two sides of the reaction to it. Like on one side, people were like, you would see tweets that would say things like, "Oh, we need to get the police involved" and things like that. And I was just like, "Okay,
it's like, all right, can we calm down, please?
Calm down." But the other side was acting like, "Yeah, this is just totally normal," and I was just like. No, it's not like a lot, or that they weren't dirty hits. And it's like, no, they clearly were dirty hits. Like, I don't have to want to get the police involved to say that's a dirty hit. Like,
No.
And there were a few of them that were just so clearly dirty hits on her, which really just were driven by animosity. Like,
I also want to point out one more thing, since we're talking about the money differences also between the NBA and the WNBA. Do you want to take a guess what Caitlin Clark's salary and bonus combined were? And she was number one overall.
Well, her salary, what, $300,000?
Well, no. Her WNBA salary and bonus roughly were $100,000 total.
Wow, total. Well, she made more money off the big three.
That's right. Yeah.
No, because the WNBA really just, is a little more profitable now, but before Caitlin Clark wasn't really profitable at all. It was just subsidized by the NBA.
Wait, is that the Ice Cube thing, the big three?
Yeah, big three, yeah.
What'd she get offered? $5 million?
It was way more than she was offered millions.
And do you remember Angel Reese got offended that she got an offer, but she didn't?
Stupid. Yeah, but
Caitlin Clark is better than you.
Much better. Much better.
I'm looking at all the endorsement deals alone. Listen to this list. Nike's her biggest one. I think she's getting... Let's see. So Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, Hy-Vee, Xfinity, Gainbridge, Lilly, Panini. And it says in April the swoosh signed the future WNBA Rookie of the Year to an 8-year agreement worth more than $3 million a year.
Wow.
So she's going to make $24 million from Nike in 8 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
She's the most successful women's athlete right now.
Yeah, no, she is.
Could she be Serena Williams? It's possible.
Would she ever? Maybe.
I'm talking about by level.
Well, yeah. I guess she could.
I would say Serena's the most successful endorsement athlete on the female side.
Yeah, I would say so too. She's the best female tennis player ever.
Yeah, not even close.
So a few other big stories involved gambling. Jontay Porter, remember this clown?
Yes,
he was betting against himself. This was actually like every professional sports league's biggest nightmare.
Yep, and he had a team of people behind the scenes helping.
Yeah, no, he would place bets against himself. I remember he placed a bet against himself, the under He placed the under against, I guess it was his scoring or something like
I
that.
think it was his rebounds.
Or rebounds, yeah, that might have been it. And then he took himself out of the game with an eye injury.
An eye injury, yep.
Which could be anything in the world. Anything could be an eye injury. You can just fake. That's the easiest injury you can fake.
Oh, I can't see, sorry.
Maybe a back injury you can kind of fake a little bit.
Or you could be Sammy Sosa and sneeze and take your back out.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a crazy story. And
this caused gambling regulations to really be looked at all over again.
Yeah, although I don't think this had very much to do with gambling regulations, because when gambling was still illegal, this type of stuff was still going on.
But here's the dumb part, and I've read this before about the NBA and the NFL. They know. They can find ways if accounts are attached to players.
Oh, yeah, but they do find that out.
What's his name in the NHL? The one that had the huge gambling debt.
What was his name? Was it Patrick Kane?
Yeah.
No. Evander Kane, I think.
Evander Kane. Yeah.
That might have been him. I don't
They
remember.
found him because they have a system that tracks if players have accounts.
Correct.
I mean,
that's how they found Calvin Ridley, right?
Yes. By the way, the NBA's investigation found that Porter revealed information about his own health to a known sports bettor ahead of a March 20th game against the Sacramento Kings. Another bettor privy to the information placed an $80,000 same-game parlay bet that featured unders on Porter statistics that would win $1.1 million.
Wow. So, and people were saying things like, it's hypocritical of the NBA, and it's like, no, it's not. No, it's not at all. They have to respond this way. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with sports betting at all. I do it. A lot of my friends do it. You do it. There's nothing wrong with sports betting, and there's nothing wrong with leagues being involved in sports betting on some level. But it's different when a player is betting on his own sport, let alone against himself in his own games. That is completely different.
Well, it says also Porter played 3 minutes before leaving the game with an illness.
Yeah, exactly. That could have been anything. His illness was gambling debts that he needed to pay back. That's what his illness was.
And it says the bet, which was placed at DraftKings, was not paid. Now, obviously, I think it was not going to get paid because of the small amount to the large bet. They probably had to go investigate that first.
Yeah.
But, wow.
Well, another story was the Shohei Ohtani story, which happened right around the same time.
His trainer, I'm trying to remember his name.
Not his trainer, it was his interpreter.
Interpreter. Yes. That guy was a evil genius behind the scene.
Yeah, well, he stole. I mean, he apparently stole like what was it, $4 million?
It got the rumors are that it got as high as $21 million.
Yeah, which he was using to bet. And now people were saying, now we ultimately none of us know if Ohtani was using him to bet on games. None of us really know. The thing is, even if he was, as long as he wasn't betting on baseball, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I think they proved eventually that he didn't. Ippei Mizuhara.
They proved that Ohtani was not making bets?
Well, they just said there was no baseball bets.
There was no baseball bets. Okay.
Because if there were baseball bets, there would have been a much more steadily investigation because this would have been Pete Rose all over again.
Right. Well, the thing is, and I remember Pete Rose said something about it. He said, by the way, I was in Vegas around when I was in Vegas 6 years ago. Pete Rose was charging people for autographs.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. That was his business.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
To be honest, my brother surprised me years ago and got me a hat from Pete Rose signed, and it has my name on it. He wrote my name on it. But, I mean, obviously, rest in peace, he's not alive anymore. But, he had a lot of issues. Mizuhara, I think, had even more issues.
Yeah, it seems like he did. But the thing is, if it's true that Ohtani was using him to make bets, which none of us know is true or not, as long as it wasn't on baseball, I don't think it really matters that much in terms of baseball. Like, if he's betting on baseball, I think that's a big deal. If he's not, then I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yes and no. Yes, because it's not on the sport that he's being investigated for.
But, look, if Ohtani is a degenerate gambler, and he's betting on everything, but he's not betting on baseball, does it really matter that much?
This goes back to the argument that they changed the rules in the NFL and the Calvin Ridley situation, where They said you could go bet on anything you want, just don't bet on it in the NFL stadiums or on property of the NFL.
Or on the NFL. Don't bet
Right.
on the NFL. But Calvin Ridley, he bet on the NFL.
Correct. Yes.
So that was why it was such a big deal. Whereas Ohtani, we don't even know for sure what was going on. But even if he were gambling, it really seems to have been proven that there was no betting on baseball.
And again, that's the big thing. They proved that there was no baseball being bet on, so they couldn't go after Shohei.
Yeah, exactly. So what is the MLB going to do in that situation? That's the question.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Mizuhara is in jail. If I'm not mistaken. So, and he's going to do time for a very long time.
Yeah. And
there was a whole bookmaking operation, if you remember correctly, when all the news came out. There were some former baseball players who got in trouble in this sting operation.
There's a Padres player that got in trouble. I think it was something separate.
It was a minor league player, if I'm not mistaken. Which that's silly. But
all right, so I do want to talk a bit about the Tom Brady roast. Remember the Tom Brady roast?
Yes. You mean that he got $50 million for?
Yeah, he basically got $50 million to get insulted.
I mean, when you say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good deal, I would say.
I mean, but he's had a lot of shit. So, like, people were going to go after him. But
the
inflated balls comments were just hilarious. But
he regretted it afterwards, I think.
Which is stupid, because if you read in the reports afterwards, he basically knew everything that was coming.
Yeah, well, no. There were certain things that he didn't. No. There were certain things that he said were off limits. If you don't remember.
Oh, you're talking about the Bob Kraft stuff?
The Robert Kraft.
Stuff.
Which is so odd that of all things was off limits. You'd think it would be like his divorce or something like that.
Do you remember he walked up? What was it? He walked up to whoever made the joke. Was it Kevin Hart? And basically said that shit was off limits or whatever?
No, it was Jeff Ross.
Or was it Jeff Ross? Who I like, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. It was Jeff Ross.
He's the roast master, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, I remember Tony Hinchcliffe said
he was hilarious, by the way.
Tony Hinchcliffe was great.
He owned the night, in my opinion.
Yeah, he did. And I think he said, but I think one of his roasts was in fact, I think Tony Hinchcliffe's roasts were the best ones, were the ones that had nothing to do with Tom Brady.
Yes.
I like the ones of the other comedians I thought were the best ones. And he said, I think he said something like "nice shoes, bitch."
Yes.
Did you win those in the divorce? And I think he said, I think Tom Brady said to him, "I'll shove those up your ass."
Yes.
Or something.
Yes. I think he said like his ex was off limits and all that stuff. I think he said.
I mean, I don't know how you can even say that.
You know who got booed the most that night? Do you remember?
Booed?
Yes.
Did anybody get booed?
I'm talking about one of the roasters who got booed the most because they didn't understand why she was up there.
Oh, Nikki Glazer?
No, Kim Kardashian.
Oh, Kardashian. Well, yeah, she's not.
She got booed so loud that I think she had to go sit down.
No, she's not a comedian. Why is she roasting?
It's social media. Remember we talked about this before with algorithm. They want to get this out there.
Yeah, well, I think didn't Gronk participate in it too?
Yeah, but I'm sure Gronk didn't read a teleprompter or any of this shit. Like Gronk could go up there and slam a football and make it funny.
Yeah, that's true. So quickly, I do want to talk a bit about Jorge Lopez throwing his glove into the stands when the Mets
got cut for this.
Bottom. The Mets needed it. It was rock bottom for us.
I mean, it was the funniest thing ever. I mean, I feel bad for whoever got hit by it, but
no, somebody caught it.
Right, but he was a jerk. He also that's not why he got. Actually, let me take that back. That's not why he got cut.
Well, it's part of the reason.
He got cut for basically insulting the Mets.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, he said, I think he doesn't speak English very well, and he said, I think he meant to say teammate. I've been the worst teammate. I don't think he was saying I'm on the worst team. Although at the time it wouldn't have been inaccurate.
I mean, it was a very odd, bizarre situation.
Well, think about where the Mets were. Think about where the Mets were in June. This was only like 6 months ago when Jorge Lopez threw his glove into the crowd and where they are now. Think about that.
I mean, they made it to the second round. I mean,
yeah. Third round.
Excuse me.
The NLCS.
NLCS. Which no one thought they were going to even
especially then. Especially then.
Is it weird to think, though, that this whole thing, like, fired up the team afterward?
Maybe, but it was also Grimace, I guess you could say. A lot of things.
I hate Grimace
Oh,
so much.
I
Not the character. I'm saying I hate that people are saying that the Grimace is the reason why
nobody literally thinks it. It just happened to. It just kind of worked out that way.
Was that like some kind of McDonald's gimmick, or did he just like throw out the first pitch randomly one day?
Just threw out the first pitch.
So it wasn't a McDonald's gimmick?
I guess I don't know. I don't know if it had to do with McDonald's. Really, I'm not sure.
Because all I remember is a big giant Grimace costume, somebody throwing out first pitch, and I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. So another story quickly. I want to get through these.
Yeah.
The Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges.
This one hurts just because I'm a Net fan.
Net fans.
I'm a Net fan. I was really looking forward when we got him from the Suns in the Kevin Durant deal, which, by the way, I think the Nets won that trade originally because they got rid of a disgruntled star who's injured and still injured with the Suns. And then I hear basically that either trade me to the Knicks or I'm sitting out.
Yep.
Now, the only thing that is the saving grace is they got way more first-round picks and whatever from the Knicks, because do you really think the Nets were just going to let a trade like that go without getting their money's worth from it?
No, of course not. But who cares? I didn't care about the picks. The Knicks don't draft well anyway.
It's a good point.
And, the Knicks are more in win-now mode. We have to compete with, the Celtics. And, well, at the time, I would have said the Sixers. But now it's really more the Celtics and the Cavs.
I mean, with Cat, that's definitely as win now as it gets.
Yeah, and that was a late trade, too. I remember when that trade happened, it was the same day the Mets lost to the Brewers.
Yes, that's right.
And we were worried. We didn't know if the Mets would even make the playoffs.
I mean, they were finally turning it around. Remember that doubleheader that happened at the end of the season, the rainouts, the Braves, and people are like, oh, shoot, they're going to find a way to blow it in that list, which they almost did, by the way.
Yeah, they almost did.
Which was typical Mets. That last series reminded me of, what was it, 2007, the Mets-Phillies, when the Phillies made the huge comeback at the end of the year.
Yeah. And also another headline, the Lakers hired JJ Redick. I defended it at the time. You didn't defend it. I defended it. Even the thing is, the reason they did it is because LeBron and JJ Redick are friends. But I don't think it's a bad hire, because I think JJ Redick would be a good basket. I thought that JJ Redick would be a good coach. He's a very good basketball mind.
I agree with you on the second part, that he's one of the best analytical minds when it comes to the NBA.
Well, don't you think that being good analytical mind would likely also translate to being a good coach? At least gives him potential.
Not necessarily. I agree with you mostly that he knows the NBA well. He was great on the NBA Finals coverage with ESPN, and it seems like ESPN can't keep their trio of broadcasters together ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Because what did they have? They had Doc Rivers. Now he went off to the Bucks, which was probably a mistake now, by the way.
Yeah.
And then JJ, I thought, first of all, has had an amazing media career between his own, what was it, the Wise Man and the Three, or whatever that podcast that he had on his own. And then he was doing stuff for ESPN with First Take. By the way, he was owning being on First Take.
Yeah, he was.
So, like, he was doing DraftKings ads and all. He didn't have to do any of this at all. But I understand why he wanted to scratch the coaching itch, though. Yeah.
So I guess that's the year in review.
Well, for the first half, at least.
That's part year in review, part one. We're going to have a part two coming up next week, which will air on Christmas Day.
Yeah, so basically when you're getting ready to open the presents, you'll get to see more insane takes.
Yeah, so we're giving you another Christmas present. That's how I would put it.
Hopefully it's a Christmas present if you want to watch it.
Yeah. So, all right. See you guys then.
See ya.